Hello and welcome back to another meeting of the Geek Cabal, Cabal Whisperings. This is episode number 23, and it's been a couple of weeks since the last time we've got to record. Just life's been busy, things like that. So today's date is March 9th, 2024. Yeah, yeah, we're back. And it's got me, Jim, if you have new to the channel.
I'm Owen.
I'm Bobby. But yeah, anything else on the gaming front? Like I know there was something else I was going to mention, but it's gone. Whatever it was.
So, any other games you've been playing?
Mm, uh, um, I've
I know you've been playing a lot of Skyrim lately.
yeah, I've been playing a lot of Skyrim. What? Yeah, I've been playing. I restarted Batman Arkham Origins.
Oh wait, there is another gaming topic. We're about to totally skip over
What's that?
the sweet baby
Oh, it's Sweet
thing. Yeah.
Sweet Baby Inc.
Yep.
But yeah, Sweet Baby Inc. So there's a lot of controversy out right now because of one was the one that I saw was that a user on Steam had produced a list of all games that Sweet Baby Inc. had taken a part of. Now, for those that are not in the know, or at least from what I gather, Sweet Baby Inc. is a consulting or company that game companies will reach out to and say, "Hey, we've got diversity inclusion stuff that we need to that we want to
They're worried about their DEI score.
yes." So they would get a hold of this company. The company would say, "Okay, this is the things that we've got to do, whatever." And they would give them suggestions, probably rewrites of scripts and whatever that may be. And there are groups of people out there that say, well, these things are ruining the pacing, the stories, or whatever, because instead of focusing on telling a good story, doing all this stuff, that they're setting all of these. You have to have these things in your game, whatever, to get a certain score, like you said. And people are coming back and saying, you know, you don't have to preach this. Like, we understand that these people are people, that you should treat people these ways. Just focus on the story. Just focus on making a good game. Don't worry about all this other stuff. And
Or at the very least, just make a good game, and then you can still put the stuff in there. But as long as you make a good game, no one's going to care. You know, like we've mentioned several times about Star Trek. Like Star Trek is clearly a progressive leaning show. Like no one's saying it's not. Actually, I'll come back to that in another segment. Some people are, but let's for the moment accept that yes, Star Trek is what we'd call a progressive leaning show, but it's a well written show. So people are like, okay, fine. I may not agree necessarily with some of the topics, but uh, but
What?
but yeah. So just go ahead and include that stuff you want to, but you need to be expending more resources on making a good game.
yeah,
And then you can still put that stuff in there. That's fine. Because again, like you said, I would like to believe that most people grasp the concept that racism is bad. Like
yes.
I would truly love to believe that.
Well, it's not like I go and play Wolfenstein and go, you know what? I think these. No, it's
Playing Wolfenstein's like, why can't I play as the Germans? Like, no. I don't think many people are seriously being like that. Or I sincerely hope they aren't anyway. Like,
How? You'd be surprised.
although, what game was it? Uh, is it one of the Call of Duty games, one of the Battlefield games? Like, you can play as the Germans, and they have the option to make your character black as a
Yes.
German in World War II.
Yeah, it was like Call of Duty, like World War II or something.
And I was just kind of like, well, on the one hand, like, I guess I should congratulate them for just running with it. Like when they know, like, this is so wrong. But on the other hand, like, this is so wrong.
This
So,
is stupid levels of
yeah, I mean, like I get it. If you're gonna make them a playable faction and you want people to be able to see themselves in, okay, like Google's Gemini thing. Uh,
the problem is when it just takes historical accuracy back behind the shed.
well,
Well,
right.
Owen mentioned this in one of the Battlefield games where I think it's supposed to be based off World War I, and like the one of the characters you can play as a woman soldier that's an amputee in
Yeah,
World War I.
yeah.
No, that was in
I think
Battlefield
it's
5. That's World War II, which still doesn't make it any better.
yeah. I think this is the same game, isn't it?
Uh, I don't- uh,
Because
well,
I think the same game also had the amputee stuff.
yeah, yeah,
And obviously the amputees fighting world, like
but
there's a famous Russian, I think he's famous Russian pilot who, fighting the Germans, ended up crashing his plane. Both of his legs had to be amputated, and they were like, well, we can't put you back in a plane. He's like, hold on, puts on his fake legs and like does some complicated Russian dance, and they're just like, well, clearly his legs worked fine, give this man a plane and send him to kill more Germans.
yeah, but Battlefield 5 had like there has been actual female representation in World War II, like the Night Witches, which was an all female like Russian night bomber crew.
Yeah.
But no, instead they have female amputee, or they had like this one mission we play as this female Norwegian commando, taking on this hydro plant based on the attack on the Bamork hydro plant, which I read a book about. And guess what? There were no women on that mission.
Yeah, I kind of figured that.
Well,
Which
there's an interview that it was Jerry Seinfeld. I don't know if you've seen this, where they were talking about and I think it was MSNBC or somebody was interviewing him, and they mentioned something about the diversity in his audiences and such, and he looks at it, he's like, oh yeah, look at all these whiteys out here. He's like, yeah, let's go down that route.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't. He's like, honestly, he's like, if you're funny, you're funny. He's like, I don't care who you are, what you look like, what you do. He's like, if you're funny, you're funny. He's like, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the truth. I mean, if you could tell a story, you can tell whatever story you want, but it's got to be a good story. It's got to be a good game. It's got to be all this. If we're talking about gaming, it's got to be good. It doesn't matter what it is. It's like at the end of the day, it's got to be good product. So Suicide Squad did not inherently fail just because of the story. It's because of all of this other stuff that comes along with it.
Just to be clear, we're talking the movie or the game?
The game.
Okay.
Suicide Squad kills the Justice League.
oh
Yeah.
yes,
Which borrowed something from the movie, from what I've seen.
What?
Deadshot.
well yes,
Oh, I've heard that, like, oh, the other one is from an alternate reality or something.
well yeah, it takes place it's a sequel to all the Arkham games, but they made some what where yeah, Deadshot's black when in Arkham City and Arkham Origins, the Deadshot you fight is very clearly white,
Yeah.
which in the Arkham tie-in movie he's also white.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, and again, I want to know what their thought process is when they're casting. I'm not saying that you always have to cast exactly what it is. I'm not saying that's because I think what Pedro Pascal is Mr. Fantastic. I don't think is a
It's not a
terrible.
terrible choice. Although the main complaint I see isn't that he's Hispanic. It's the main people have basically just been like, he's not a good actor. So I think he's an okay actor. We'll see. But like I said, whenever we talked about that originally, like, it could definitely be worse. Like,
And I mean, and we know for a fact that because like I think somebody had brought out like what Disney's thing was about, like you have to have this, you have to have this, you have to have this, and all of your movies.
the literal checklist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm not saying it's a problem to to have some things that are like you need to have some people on your staff that are whatever but like when you're talking about like main things, like your script has to include these things. And then I seen somebody go, well, look at these movies that they had done in the past, like Mulan, Moana, and all this stuff. It's like when when diversity was not the primary focus, they told good stories. They had good, entertaining movies. Um, and then when you have this magic checklist that you have to do these things, that's when the quality of movies has just started going down because instead of focusing on like I said, there's no problem with having movies about different cultures and different things like that. When that you're going to say, okay, we're going to take a story of Mulan, and we're gonna develop a movie on this and do all this stuff, and
Yeah,
that's the basis of the movie. Everything else just falls into place. I don't think Shang-Chi was a bad movie. I think it wasn't a great movie, but it wasn't a bad movie. It was entertaining, and you didn't hear a bunch of hoopla about diversity and all this stuff because they went to a group of people. They said, okay, we're going to make an Asian-led movie. We're going to use it.
yeah,
Same with Black
they
Panther.
went to China and expected it to be full of Chinese people.
Same thing with the first Black Panther movie. I mean, you had a couple of white people in there. I mean, obviously they did have white person. They had Claw in there.
Hold on, the two Tolkien white people.
Well, I mean, if Wakanda's in Africa, then yeah, you'd.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, I know people. The counter argument people is like, well, what if we made Black Panther white? It's like, well, first of all, let's pick an example that they would actually at least consider. Okay, because you wouldn't, because he's a king of an African nation, sub-Saharan African nation. Like, he's probably going to be a black guy. Like, But let's look at someone like, say, Blade. There's nothing about Blade's character that has to do with his ethnicity. Like, because that's the argument I always hear is, well, what does being white have to do with their character? And it's like, well, I mean, probably a lot, but let's ignore that for the moment. And it's like, well, what if we made Blade a white guy? Like, I don't want to see that, but I'm just saying as a thought exercise, like, we all know that some people would be quite upset over this fact. And these same people tell you to not be upset whenever it happens to other characters. And I want to be clear, I don't like it the other way either. Like, a big reason I didn't go watch that movie aside from the fact it looked stupid was The Great Wall was Matt Damon was in it. Like, the hell's Matt Damon doing in a movie in ancient China fighting dragons? Like, I'm sure there's some contrived plot reason for him to be there. For all I know, he's Marco Polo. Probably is now that I think about it. But, like, it's stupid. Like, don't do that. But I do not need I as a white person do not need Matt Damon to convince me to watch a movie that's full of predominantly what I'm assuming are Chinese people.
Well, the thing is that there's so many stories that could be told, and I want to be told. Like, I think it's great learning about other like other cultures and stuff like that, and just getting to experience that through a movie. And and the thing is that, like, say the one that always comes up is that people talk about like The Witcher being whitewashed, and I'm like, it's Nordic
I think it's Poland actually,
or whatever, but
but yes,
I mean,
but medieval European country is full of white people. Like, that's okay. Water's also wet. Like, no crap.
I think the problem is that the people they have. I think some people they have good intentions, but at the same time you're wanting to misrepresent another group's culture. And the one argument is that white people don't have culture, which I can only eyeball for that.
Yeah, that one's up there with the white people don't know how to cook or season their food, and I'm like, that the British Empire conquered half the damn world trying to find spices, right? Then promptly decided they didn't like any of them, but like, France and Italy, last time I checked, are both in Europe and are well known as basically some of the best food on the planet. Like,
well, yeah, they just
that's one of the dumbest things I ever hear like that.
And that's, I don't know. So really, and again, this is like where I'm always worried, like, oh, we're gonna get a strike or something. It's like, well, no. I was like, I want people to understand, like, there are good stories to be told, and there are some of my favorite movies are of other cultures. I mean, yes, you go watch Aladdin and you realize, well, most of them are white actors that are voicing the characters in there. But
Another side note on this, Jim. Are you aware that the main guy, what's his name in Aladdin, main character that finds the genie and everything?
Jafar?
No, not Jafar.
No,
he's the bad guy.
That's the bad guy.
Main hero. I can't think of his name on top of my head. It's totally spaced.
Aladdin.
There we go. That's terrible, Owen. I'm going to edit that out. I look stupid there.
No.
Well, that's why I
keep
got
it in.
confused. That's why I got confused because
Are you aware that Aladdin is supposed to be Chinese?
I did not.
Yeah, apparently, like in the original story, like he's not even Arab. Like from what I've heard online, I haven't read it. I'm just that's just the thing I heard one day, and I was like, that sounds odd. Like, and I know that no version is accurate then. So
No, actually, that's why I got confused. You're like, who's the main person in
yeah,
Aladdin?
yeah, like it didn't click that I was like, oh, the movie's named after him. Of course, it's him. So yeah,
So that's why I said
it's
Jafar.
gonna,
Well,
it's gonna be a little bit of editing there, folks.
because that's why I got confused. Because like, I don't know. Because he also knew where the lamp was at, just didn't want to go get it.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't think. I don't think I went to go watch Aladdin. Like, well, dang, look at all this stuff. I don't care about any of this. It's like, no. I mean, yeah. In current state, I would say it'd probably be worthwhile to get actors that are of the ethnicity of what
Are we talking live action? Or are we talking voice
he was
actors?
voice acting.
Because as far as I'm concerned, voice actors, since you never see them, I want the person that sounds best for the role.
True.
Like I don't want Darth Vader, who's a white guy, to be voiced by anyone other than James Earl Jones, who's black. Like it's I don't want to live in that world where James Earl Jones was not the voice of Darth Vader. Like that's like the darkest timeline over there. That's like the prequel to like Warhammer 40K or something.
well, and that would be like, oh, well, Joker needs to be actually voiced by somebody that is a psychotic whatever. Like, no.
No, like that, and that's where you go with things like that. It's like no, like it leads to absurdities.
Well, and I think like when George Takei was like, no, Sulu should not be gay just because I am gay. He's like, that would be the same thing as saying like if I can't think of the actor's name, the guy that played Sheldon. He's gay in real life.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was straight in the show. They'd be like, oh, and we're gonna make him like, well, no. It's like he's an actor. You're acting.
Yes.
Like, at least I say they're acting. I think there's some people that don't even know that that's what they're supposed to be doing.
No. But no, like back to the voice topic thing. Like, come on, the Shredder, that was Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
Yeah.
Like, Shredder's a Japanese guy, not a large, deep voiced black man. Like, I'm pretty sure. I believe the guy who voiced the Kingpin in the Spider-Man TV series is black also. Get the voice for the job.
And I agree, but I'm saying like if you're gonna tell the stories, that go along with it. Don't be like, don't feel like the biggest first thing you have to do is okay, who are we gonna get to play these roles? I mean, it should be like let's have a good story, and then let's actually do auditions. Let's see who actually, and you're when you're doing live action, you do want to audition for people that look the part. And in some circumstances, maybe it's okay to do some sort of, mild race swap. I don't know. I mean,
I know, like I've said before, it doesn't stop me from watching a movie, and I don't like go out and protest or like scream online about it. Not screaming. I guess I'm going to talk about it online here though, but like
the big one that gets me is Fantastic. That's fantastic.
That is the pinnacle example because it shows like the follow-on effects of once you start doing that. Like all these characters are connected by blood. Like so, you've got to start like coming up with more and more stupid things. It's like, well, okay,
like
Johnny Storm and Sue Storm are brother and sister, blood related. One of them, like that could happen genetically, but it's unlikely. And so then they have to go with, okay, well, now she's adopted. And I can almost guarantee what the eventual plan there was going to be, by the way.
What?
Well, think about it. No one likes the pairing of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman. Like nobody. Ultimately, I'm sure the plan was going to be in the sequel to have those two hook up. Like, because they're not blood related. Plus, especially after Game of Thrones, even that's not an hindrance anymore, apparently. So yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it stinks that I always have to keep coming back to these conversations, but I mean, I think at least some companies are starting to realize that not putting the story first, or if you want to have those types of stories told, find the stories to tell.
Yeah, I mean find a story that can fit what you're wanting to say, or And I know to you writers there in Hollywood, this is a foreign concept, but make a new story. You know,
Yeah, it seems like people talk about fatigue in like superheroes and Star Wars. I'm like, I think there's fatigue in movies because people are just like, let's keep recycling the same crap. I mean, you talked about the Mean Girls thing. Well, Footloose was a remake that I just watched. There's all of these
well,
remakes and
even Dune Part Two. It's not a remake of the '84 movie, but it's a retelling, and it's the third one because people forget the Sci-Fi Channel version too, which was decent. But it's the third attempt to retell a story from a book from over 50 years ago, and it's like the biggest movie at the moment because it's an excellent movie. You know, like
Mhm.
they got it mostly right this time. But the fact that that's like the big movie at the moment is the third attempt to retell a sci-fi tale from a book from the 50s. Like, what is going on? Like, where's the original stuff?
I
You know,
I don't think creativity's dead. I think it's just taking a nap.
Well, it's gone somewhere else. Like again, when we went to go see Godzilla Minus One, and you could see that story was up at the forefront. Monster fight, monsters in the background, was the secondary to it. It ended up being a way better movie than
yeah. And I mean, you could argue that, well, we've seen it all before. There's what, 30, 40 Godzilla movies at least. So you could argue we've seen it before, but like it was a fresh take. It was going back to the roots
and I think the
and telling a
PTSD.
more human centric story. You know,
told a human centric story well.
And see, and I can compare that to the 2014 Godzilla movie where they tried to focus more on the humans as well, and it was not a very good telling of the movie. The movie was okay. I mean, it was entertaining, but
But there was some problems with it, like no Godzilla, lack of Godzilla screen time.
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
there's one thing about not just, oh, here's the monster, here's the monster, here's the monster. But at the same time, it's like, oh, when you're going to show the monster, it's going to be completely black. You can't see anything. There's not going to be a scene where you're going to be like, oh, I can see how large he is to scale with everything else around him. It's like, I see a foot. Everything's like, I'm looking up at Godzilla. Don't get me wrong, those scenes work. Because you have those in Godzilla Minus One. You had like where they're like looking up and like, okay, I can see Godzilla up there. I can see the scale. But then it would be like pan back and you'd see Godzilla just walking through the city. But again, the amount of screen time wasn't really that much. But whatever they did show, they made it hit. They made it count. So, but anyways, maybe that's the thing. Maybe we'll start getting more movies from like Japan and from countries that are going to be like, we're going to go ahead and release this stuff
Well,
over there.
I haven't watched it yet, but there's a series. I think it started now. It's called Shogun on. I think it's on FX and Hulu and Disney Plus. The main guy that's in it, who I'm assuming is the guy playing the Shogun, he's been in a few things. He was in The Last Samurai. It's not Ken Watanabe's character from The Last Samurai. He was like one of the other samurai, and he's been in several other things. But I'm completely spacing what else he's been in. He's in Army of the Dead, Zack Snyder's zombie movie there on Netflix. Another Zack Snyder movie that was actually good, by the way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's not many of those, but that one was. I think Watchmen is excellent, by the way. He did a good job. And 300 is pretty good too. Then, uh, anyway, the main guy was like, well, I'm only going to be in this under certain conditions. And one of them was, if the character's Japanese, the actor's going to be Japanese. Because there's not a whole lot of non-Japanese characters, because it's in like the feudal era in Japan. So, but he wanted like the characters like to line up with what they're supposed to be. And they made his demands, so the show's been made. So
Speaking of Zack Snyder, he said something recently that DC is making Batman irrelevant by enforcing his no-kill rule.
When in
yes.
actuality, if you have the right story, the fact that he doesn't kill and takes the easy way out, though,
Yes, despite my earlier comment about
Throwing the Joker off the rooftop.
the killing joke, generally speaking, I disagree with what he's saying. Like, that's one of the things about Batman is that He doesn't kill people. And in general, I don't think most comic heroes should kill people. But that crosses into that whole, like, there are things that just don't work once you start going down that road in comics. Because, yeah, even anything even remotely approaching realism, half of Batman's rogues gallery would be dead. He would have killed him. Like, that's all there is to it. Also, Batman's insane. Like, he's doing, like, he just, oh, this is for justice. No, it's for revenge for his parents being killed. That's what it's all about. He is crazy. Like, that's the beginning and end of Batman. Superman, Superman Superman has no problem killing his villains if you pay attention. Like, if they're a robot, they're getting turned into scrap metal. Like, doesn't matter they're self-aware. Like, they're not a biological organism. He's killing them. The three Zod and his two goons in one of the alternate dimensions, they'd conquered the Earth. Superman just brought kryptonite and killed them because it didn't affect him. It's a different reality, you know. Like, Superman does kill his villains occasionally. And he regrets it. You know, he's like, it tears him up because he doesn't want to, but he recognizes there are some threats that if he can't stop them, no one can. So, like, what are you going to do against those guys? Like, they've got to go down. And that's what it comes down to. So I think it shouldn't be an absolute, but against people like the Penguin and the Scarecrow, yeah, no, there's no reason to kill him.
And there's a point when, you know, like when Batman does kill the Joker, that it makes sense. He's like, I've tried so many times.
Dark Knight Returns.
He's like, and even then, I don't think he was going to kill him. And
no, he didn't. He like his neck was partially broken, and then the Joker like says something to him and just like snaps his own neck, and Batman's just like. But then Batman's like, well, you're not getting the last laugh, you bastard, and sets his corpse on fire. At which point, then he's just sitting there with his jaw hanging open, look like he's laughing at him, and Batman's just like, I can't get away from this guy.
And then Superman's like, oh, you can't do that, running your vigilante, blah blah blah. And then Batman is like, I have to be able to defeat you.
Yeah, you know, from what I've read, I think Frank Miller intended that to be like the future of the Adam West Batman, from what I understand. And if you've never seen the animated version of that, that's pretty good too. And they made a version where they put parts 1 and 2 together as a single movie. I thought Peter Weller was a great choice for the voice of Batman, by the way.
I did see one thing about Batman, and people are like, what are you talking about, a year of prep time? Because they were like, Batman's going to run the gauntlet. The first person they had him up against was the Sentry, and they're like, what is he going to learn in a year that's going to defeat the Sentry?
Nothing.
Exactly. People are like, he dies immediately by the Sentry, because, first of all, the Sentry does not have that restraint.
It's also crazy.
Yes, and does not have the restraint from killing people.
Yeah, there's a panel from one of the Dark Avengers books where Bullseye's sitting there, and Norman Osborn comes in and says something, and he leaves, and Bullseye's kind of like, well, I wonder how long before that psychopath's going to get us killed, or is going to kill us. And they're like, you talking about the Sentry? He's like, well, I mean, him and Norman. He's like, because they're both lunatics. Yeah.
Yes, the Sentry has one of my favorite Hey Kids comics moments.
Where he kills Carnage?
Well, no, where he rips Ares in half.
Well, he did the same thing to Carnage, as I recall. Like, took him up into the upper atmosphere and tore him apart. Yeah. Or it could be like Ragnarok, who puts an end to Goliath. The shortest comeback in comic history. I believe he punches a hole right through him.
Or he zaps a hole right through him with the lightning. Yeah, Thor was not very appreciative of Tony Stark for that.
No, that's one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
That's
where he goes and confronts him, and like Thor hits him once, and Tony's like it takes him a second to get up, and he's like, that really hurt. He's like, yeah, I've been holding back because you were a friend. Note, were. He's like, come to me again, I'll kill you. Like, I don't appreciate you making a robot clone of me. Yeah. He was pretty pissed. He never went to Mr. Fantastic, though. He's the one who made the damn thing, I think. Mr. Fantastic was all aboard for all the crazy crap in Civil War. Oh, let's build a prison in the negative zone. That's what I want to do to my fellow heroes. And Marvel the whole time like, yeah, you guys are on Iron Man's side, right? And the public's like, no. Iron Man's a dick. We're on Captain America's side. Like, freedom, dude. Like, do you read these comics? Like, they're all vigilantes. They're all breaking the law constantly. Where the hell have you been for the last 40 years of comics history? Which again comes back to the whole like real world things just don't work in superhero comics.
No, I thought in the Civil War movie they handled that pretty well. Like,
Yeah, well, Civil War movie is like totally different plot
oh,
line.
I know, but I mean, like the governance of the, I think that's what I said. The point made more sense. Like, yeah, if we are just ungoverned, I mean, wasn't like, oh, everybody needs to know whose identity is. It was more of just like the Avengers, need to have somebody saying, hey, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do.
Yeah, but like
I mean,
it still ended up right back to Sokovia Accords. Oh, we're still mentioning those in this movie. I mean, by the end of that same movie, Tony Stark's already ignoring them, and he was like the grand champion for them. And that's all because subconsciously he knows someone needs to rein him in. Almost all those problems. Who started all of them?
Stark.
Yeah.
and again, like I think the Iron Legion was a good idea in theory. I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't.
like they were like it's a decent idea. You know, the whole Ultron thing was a good idea.
Well, I don't know why he had to go past the Iron Legion. It seemed like the Iron Legion were just fine enough.
I think he was thinking either if he wasn't there or once he's gone or like making a larger system, you know, but even then I think Jarvis could have handled it,
Yeah.
you know, because it's clear Jarvis was an AI at that point also, like fully self-aware. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's what we get.
I don't know how we got into that from gaming, but
We started talking about hero clicks at some point. I think we
Wait,
went wildly off. Oh, is this a sweet baby thing?
Sweet baby
Yeah.
ink.
yes, that's.
Let down that rabbit hole.
But yes, like I say, if you want to look for more in depth on that, there are plenty of.
Yes, there's plenty of information out there on the topic.
I would recommend find your YouTuber that digs more into those kinds of things, watch those, and make your own opinion of it, because obviously everybody's opinionated, and you should make your own call on it.
Yes, because as Michael Ironside says in Starship Troopers, thinking for and I'm paraphrasing, so I know I'm going to screw this up. You know, thinking for yourself is the only true freedom anyone has. But remember, according to the director, that man's a fascist. So, you know, because fascists say things like that all the time, like think for yourself.
Yeah, not groupthink.
Yeah, no, not at all like a hive mind bug species. Yeah. In case you folks don't know, apparently there are people out there that like legitimately side with the bugs, and it's like you just are a misanthrope that hates humanity. That's all there is to it. Like, and like the hoops they have to jump through to justify it. Yeah. Owen, you ever seen Starship Troopers?
No.
I don't know if
Read the book?
I don't know if it'd be appropriate for him to watch the movie.
Oh, yeah, there's the shower scene, I suppose.
Yes.
Which also goes to prove that in this future, like, equality has been achieved. Because in the military, they have a co-ed shower, and, like, no one bats an eye at, like, anything potentially happening in there.
Also makes me wonder if there's, that in the military conscription, to become a citizen, you have to.
Well, you don't just, it's not just the military. Here's where the movie goes off the rails, because the director read about 20 pages of the book, thought it was boring, and just took off in his own direction. In the book, the military is not the only way to gain citizenship. You just have to, it's civil service. There's other options. All right? And the military in the book are super advanced commandos that pilot battle armor that puts the Iron Man armor to shame. Okay? There's not a whole lot of them. Like, it's supposed to be one of them against, a million bugs kind of thing. The humans don't use the same wave tactics that the bugs use. So they don't need that many people in the military. And it's also all male in the book, but it's a book from the 60s, so. For the infantry, the fleet is mostly women because they're better pilots. So, in fact, I think there's actually more women in the whole military because of the fleet thing. But, yeah. Yeah, no, it's because of the mangling of the book, parts of the movie just don't make any sense. So, yeah, that's what you get. But, no, like I said, Chad and I are going to try to get together to do a video on that whole topic, because, like, people just don't understand, like, Paul Verhoeven, the director, wanted the movie to be a satire of like fascism and militarism, and he forgot to make them be, fascists. Just, puts old Doogie Howser in an SS uniform at the end of the movie and just kind of calls it a day. Like, the society presented in the movie is not a fascist society, it's a libertarian society. Like, there's a tremendous difference between those two things. And I keep seeing people's comments online like they clearly didn't understand the movie or didn't watch it or something. Because, like, oh, they're drafting people. Like, no one got drafted. The service is entirely 100% voluntary, and you can leave at any time. Like, there's no social repercussions of leaving other than you can't re-enlist. That's it. Like, oh, the military controls everything, and the downtrodden. Like, Rico's parents are rich and are not citizens. Like, that tells you that the military is not screwing with things. The only actual politics in the entire movie is in the class at the beginning of the movie about politics. Like, that's it. And they spout about other things like, oh, the humans started the war. It's like, I don't think that's actually a fact in evidence. But let's assume, because what they're saying is, you recall they talk about the Mormon colony that tried to colonize one of the bug worlds. Well, the human government is so hands off, they just said, you really shouldn't do that, but we're not going to stop you, because you're free to do that, like fascists do. And so they colonized, and as a result, the bugs wiped out Buenos Aires. Like, the bugs really did throw the meteor, because remember, the ship comes at it in light speed. That's how the meteor's getting there. So, in a response to some people settling there, and then killing all the people, then they kill 20 million people in Buenos Aires. Like, proportional response, the bugs don't understand the concept. Which means they've got to go. So, as far as humanity is concerned, the bugs started the war with the meteorite. And that's the point the war starts. And there's people like, oh, the war is ongoing. Like, no, that's when the war started. When Rico enlists, initially, the war is not going yet. It starts when they destroy Buenos Aires. Before that, they weren't in war with the bugs. In the book, they're at war with the skinnies. Another race that's not in the movie. Yeah. Although I think by the end of the book, the skinnies have switched sides and joined them against the bugs. But, yeah. So there's just a bunch of things like that. That people just like horribly misrepresent the movie with things that aren't in the movie. And then like, see, fascism. And it's like, no. I mean, the other big thing is like a third of the way into the movie, the Sky Marshal steps down once the offensive failed. The other thing fascist leaders are known for doing when things go wrong, stepping down willingly and let someone else get elected.
Elected?
Elected, yes. The Sky Marshal's an elected position. Now, the only people that can vote are citizens who had to earn their citizenship. So that is if you want to talk about that, that's one thing. But, I mean, that's it. Like it's just, if it's a satire of anything, it's a satire of propaganda. Because the whole thing's a propaganda movie. Like an in-universe propaganda movie. Would you like to know more? But yeah, no, it's a fun movie. I mean, Paul Verhoeven just failed at what he was trying to do, but still made an entertaining movie. You want to see one of his movies that's actual satire of things? Watch RoboCop. That's a satire of corporatism, the news, and ultraviolence. It gets it all right. With our Lord and Savior, RoboCop, came back from the dead after he died for our sins. In an obvious Jesus metaphor.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah.
The SUX.
The SUX 6000. 8 miles to the gallon, if I recall correctly.
Yes. And if you don't get it, the SUX is in sucks.
Yeah.
Someone goes, look what I got. It finally got me a car. And then they blow it up with a rocket.
Yeah. Like, hey, look, Clarence, they gave me a car just like yours. Like, yeah, did you get one of these? And the Cobra assault cannon, which then try to use against him at the end of the movie. But unfortunately for Clarence Bonnaker, did not know about RoboCop's data extraction unit. The big blade thing that comes out. Don't know why it had to be shaped that way, but
That helps guide it into the port.
Yeah. I need a needle this long to guide into a port for data extraction, not just like a thumb drive.
Could you imagine if R2 had one of those?
Yeah.
Just be impaling people. You'd be like, hold on, I got to clean my the port thing on here.
Yeah. Could you imagine if R2 had thruster rockets to fly him around everywhere, but never used them in 3 of the movies?
Yes, those thruster rockets.
Well, the question is, what scene would be different if you had those thruster rockets?
The thruster rockets, I think he probably wouldn't have been as easily captured by the Ewoks, for one. And it might not have needed, like, Luke to use the Force to prove one of them's a god. Just that they were wrong on which one they were worshipping. That would have been different. I think some things on Cloud City might have gone differently. Maybe. Probably not the escape from the Tantive 4, but maybe once they're on Tatooine, you know.
Fine, go that way.
Yeah, just takes off and see there. It's like, you ass.
I mean,
Fine, just fly away.
I mean, would the barge have been any different?
Well, I think didn't he have a restraining bolt?
Yeah,
Right.
so he would have been able to.
Yeah. Now once the bolt was removed, yeah, he'd be like, "Hang on, everybody," you know, and they'd all fly away instead of swinging on a rope. That I don't think should have worked, but because the pivot point would be like still on the barge, you know, you can only get so far out. You know, like I don't think physics wise that actually works, but you know, I don't want to bring that to Star Wars at all. Oh, speaking of which, I told you guys. Well, I guess we're probably done with gaming.
Yeah.
I think that's long gone.
Into streaming maybe here.
Yeah.
So I started watching the 12-hour Phantom Menace dissection video, and I'm about 2.5 hours into it, and now he's talking about like the angle of the thrusters on ships and like the conical design versus other designs, and how this ship has this many, this has this many. What does that mean? What's the significance? But early on, he actually makes a claim that Star Wars is harder science fiction than Star Trek. And like, he presents a case. He might be onto something here. So, hear me out. And by me, I mean him. Star Trek, everything is solved by like inverting the deflector dish and doing these things, and they keep running into like god-powered level aliens and all kinds of weird stuff. Star Wars, you take out the Force, and it's basically just a bunch of giant machines doing things. Like, yeah, we don't know the science behind them, but it's all just a bunch of industrial stuff. Like,
I mean, the Phantom Menace is a space politics movie.
yeah. I mean, the Force is like the one fantastic element. Star Trek, like every other week, they run into something that can't happen, as far as we know. You know.
Sorry, I got a phone call there. Girlfriend's out at thrift shops, and she said, "I seen PC games."
Oh, anything exciting?
I don't know. She was calling me to see.
Oh. Well, Jim, do you want to take a call real quick and
No,
just clip this part out?
no, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
Um,
Other than that, on streaming, the only thing is I've been started to watch Star Trek Enterprise. About 12 episodes in, I kind of regret not watching it when it was on. Seems to be like a good show. I do have a question for you though, Jim, and I know this is a spoiler-related question. Spoil away. The show's 20 years old. They keep mentioning the chef. Is the chef Riker? Like, or is there actually a chef, and that's only for like those episodes at the end?
well, there is a chef, but I think they actually do keep it like where you don't. I don't know. I don't remember if you see the chef or whatever. But in the hologram episode, yes, he plays the chef.
Yeah, I just didn't know if like they were supposed to believe like all of this was on the holodeck, like historical, but on the holodeck, and like Riker's been there the whole time as the chef. You know, I didn't know if we were supposed to believe that or if it's only for those episodes or what.
Yeah,
So,
I believe it's only. I don't know.
so my other question is the Doctor, Phlox, is that his name? Does he ever lose his sunny disposition on things, or is he just like upbeat throughout the whole thing?
You know, I swear there's at least a few moments where he.
Yeah, there's already been one moment where he was kind of like, Captain, I've got some problems with this.
I don't remember.
I hope not. Like he is a bright ray of sunshine in an otherwise dark universe. The fact that he's sitting there like, this is awesome out here exploring all this stuff, meeting these new people. Hell yeah. Like I want to see more of that.
Would you like to know more?
Yes. But no, the one episode so far was they come across there's the race that they've got like accumulated genetic anomalies that are going to kill them in a couple centuries, and he finds a cure, but he's like, is it right for us to give this to them? Because there's the other race on the planet who might supplant them if they're gone. They're showing that they're becoming more intelligent. And Archer's like, well, we've got to save them. Like, that's our job. But then he's like, he gives him the whole, like, he's like, well, I did reconsider. And there's no rules for this. Once someone comes up with some kind of directive, that's like, a prime directive, perhaps, Jonathan? Like, just go ahead and say it. Like, you're already there. So, yeah. But I note that this was after meddling in another planet's affairs. And damn, 12 episodes in, like, the Vulcans are pretty shady. Is it like, no, there's no listening post here at this monastery we've had for thousands of years? And Archer's like, what's this? Looks like a listening post to me. I think the Andorians were onto something. And he tells the Andorians about it. The Andorians like, all right, well, everyone can leave because we're going to blow this place up. Which they do. And that's yet another character played by Jeffrey Combs.
If she wasn't kidding, there were a lot of PC games.
Yeah.
The only one that actually wasn't even a PC game was a copy of Dragon Quest, but it's a Japanese, which is also, I believe, by Akira Toriyama. So I think that.
Owen, watch anything on streaming lately?
No, I can't say that I have.
The other thing I've been watching on YouTube is the people read stories from Reddit, like sci-fi stories. Yeah, they're interesting.
Oh.
There's a whole lot of like they all eventually like the punchline to all of them is like you really shouldn't have screwed with humanity. Depending on the various ways. Like some of them are actually really inventive.
That's a thing that really kind of just surprised me, that the amount of YouTubers that just do nothing but read Reddit posts.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's entire like YouTube Shorts channels that nothing but like 2 or 3 Reddit posts per video.
Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes like hearing a story is kind of cool, and I mean, like there are things that you may not come across, but when people make that their entire channel, it kind of surprises me. Now, there were some that I've been watching where I mean, they include like the video link. So there's one that's like, um, there were YouTube videos with disturbing backstories or whatever, and I'm trying to think if it was. I think it was Chilling Scares was the one that I was watching it on. And like they'll show like a YouTuber doing like videos and stuff, and then like they'll go into like what happened to that person. Like one of them was this AC or a RC helicopter pilot, RC helicopter pilot, and I guess he didn't fly like the little ones, but like the big ones with the metal blades and stuff. And they were talking about this maneuver he would do, and they like showed a video of it. And I guess there's a video out there of him doing this maneuver, and it was like he flips the helicopter upside down, goes almost to the ground, and then rights it right at the end. Well, he didn't right it at the end. The thing hit the ground, the blade flies off and decapitates him. Those kinds of things. And it makes you wonder why stories like that are intriguing to people. And I mean, morbid curiosity comes into play. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, nobody wants to see that happen in real life. Nobody wants to know. But once it's already happened,
yeah, it's why you can't turn away from the train wreck. Like you don't want it to happen, but like once it does, like you've got to look.
Yeah,
it's like the people that go to races that are hoping to see the car crash. Because otherwise, what are you doing? You're watching cars go around in a circle for hours on end. Like that has got to be the most boring thing imaginable. But somehow it's not.
I mean, I think
no offense to any race fans out there.
And don't get me wrong. That's
just my opinion.
There is an excitement about seeing a car fly by you at a 100 miles, 200 miles an hour, whatever it is, this roar of the engines. But after a point, it's like, okay, now we have to wait for them to do this 100 more times.
Yeah.
That's why I like some
Now
of
I'm going to get a beer. Tell me when they're back.
you know,
You know.
that's why I sometimes like the, like some of the stock car races or motorcycle races I remember go seeing. They were a lot shorter. I mean, it'd be like 10 laps.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, cool. This I can sit down and watch. But no, to your point, like, and I don't think that's anything like crazy with the mind or anything like that. It's just,
No, it's. I mean, that goes back to at least the Romans. Like people enjoy watching violence and death. Like otherwise, the Colosseum wouldn't have been popular. Like
yeah.
people went to go watch people fight to the death.
And
And not always other people, sometimes animals. Apparently they were able to flood the Colosseum and have ship battles in there.
Yeah.
Like have like naval combat. Like, can you imagine like living in like the year one? It's like, well, we're going to watch the ship battle today. Like to anyone that had never been to Rome, be like, what in the hell are you talking about? Like, are they fighting out in the harbor? No, over here, this big building over here. Like, what? Yeah, come on.
but
Yeah, not so you probably when they get tickets to in the splash zone.
No. You probably want to pay the upper parts on that one.
Well, I got a cannonball to the face. That was.
Well, it was going good until the guy next to me, trebuchet. Well, but season tickets open now.
No, like I said, I don't think it's. I think now we look at these things and we're like, I think those kind of shows become popular because it's in hindsight. It's like, well, I know this has already happened. It's not like I'm rooting for it to happen. I'm wanting it to happen. It's already happened. I want to know all the details.
It's the allure of mystery of how something just seems normal, but actually it's something weird or crazy.
Well, that and just seeing the depravities of the human psyche, where people can do things that you can't even imagine. Like, I mean, like you said,
that's one of the other things that comes up in those stories sometimes is the reason the aliens pick the wrong race is like the depths humans will sink to. Yeah.
And I think that's where people kind of go, well, can anybody be that person? And there's that mystery and the whatever to go along with it. So,
Well, according to Robert Heinlein, who wrote Starship Troopers, yes, where he's talking about the difference between humans and the bugs, he's like the bugs, they can perform one function. A human at any given moment can write a symphony, sing a song, produce a play, make a movie, be an athlete. It's sort of like a paragraph, like to prove his point. He's like, everyone is capable of doing those things theoretically. And he's like, so yeah, somewhere in there is probably also the other. Although, from everything I understand, from a biological standpoint, it's more likely to be a man to do the weird, grotesque. But
yeah. Well, as Jordan Peterson says, he's like, when it comes to aggression, he's like, men are usually easily the more aggressive of the two.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's testosterone. Like, it's not to say there aren't aggressive women. There are. It's not to say that women can't be aggressive when push comes to shove. Because, again, like look at, I know there's movie examples, but like Aliens, the Terminator, women definitely can be, and at least in those two cases, especially when you try to screw with their kids.
Yep.
Like, it's just It's just that men have more triggers or are more easily triggered, or however you want to look at it. So, but yeah, that's most what I've been doing on streaming.
Got anything else? So we're on the miscellaneous.
Well, we didn't have anything on books, did we?
Yeah, books. I was just going to mention that I have done several book reviews lately. There was a BattleTech book review I just put up for hunting season, and the author was kind enough to grace us with some comments on that one. So I think it's the second or third time that's happened now, which is nice, And I don't know what book's going to be next because I'm kind of at a lull at the moment. So probably keep reviewing the books I've already read. I don't know about new books just yet. Excuse me. There are some new BattleTech books that I'm going to get. I just haven't bought them yet. So, yeah, other than that, there's a book I'm reading that I might try to finish because it's kind of going down I think I can predict how the rest of this book's going to go path. It's about basically making the argument that there's several companies that are far too large and need to be broken up. It's what they're called break them up. It's just that, like, for all the good points they're making, I think they're also going to be advocating socialism by the end of the book. So, like, I'm pretty sure that's where it's going. And sorry for all you socialism fans out there, like, I am not.
Well,
Like,
well, and that kind of brings me back to like when they tried to break up with Microsoft, and I'm like, they had a monopoly on Windows because there just really wasn't a
well,
suitable.
yeah, that wasn't the problem. The problem was was that they were forcing other companies, like the manufacturers, to bundle all their software on their machines.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point on that. I mean, I think that, but like say if you were like, well, we need to have equal opportunity operating system. Look, they did. They had OS and they had
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some
yeah,
things that you just can't. I mean, like, are you going to try to sue the power company because they have a monopoly? Are you going to go build a new coal-fired power plant somewhere? Like, no, there's certain things that just like there's not another thing,
yeah,
you know. Uh, but her argument is that like the things some of these companies are doing now, like what Microsoft is doing, was that pales in comparison to what some of them do. And I'm
yeah.
gonna
I like the one that comes to mind always for me is that with phones is pre-installed software that you cannot uninstall.
yeah.
I'm
I mean,
like I remember, I think on one of hell maybe on my phone now that I had like the NFL app, and I'm like, I'm never going to use this. I'm going to delete it. You can't.
yeah.
I'm like, well, that's
Yeah, well, you got things like that, but a lot of these are more like, okay, Google, which owns YouTube, uh, also owns the ad companies that handle all the ads on Google and on YouTube. And so clearly that's a conflict of interest. And there's, that's one of the big ones. Amazon owns not just the web store, they also own all the architecture for the back end, and they sell that as the cloud. And so they've got essentially two separate businesses that they're able to leverage the one for the other, and that's not the way it's supposed to work. They clearly have too much control of some things, and no one's arguing. I don't think anyone's arguing that like Jeff Bezos can't own both the companies, but that they should be separate companies. And the other big thing is like on Amazon. Well, Amazon also has their own products. So they're also there on the storefront. It's all digital. Well, someone's got to be number one in the search. Conveniently, it's Amazon a number of times, and it's like, yeah, but what if that's not even what they're searching for? They're clearly putting their finger on the scale. And I get the argument that hey, it's their store, but like even if you go into Walmart, Walmart still has to follow restrictions as far as like great value stuff. And I don't know what the names of some of their other brands are, but like there's limits to what they can do with them. They can't just be like, I mean, I suppose they could just make just them a great value in the store because it is their store. It's a physical store. They could do that. There's no one that says they have to let other people sell in there. But if they do let other people sell in there, there's rules to follow, you know. And the argument is that Amazon's not following those rules. So
well, I think the bigger implication with Google in general when you mention them,
so it's really like five or more different companies that collectively act like a hydra.
well, that and I mean they can control all search results. Like they have an algorithm and all of that, and the fact that they
The fact that they also control anything else, yeah, yeah, and that's the big complaint. And then the book also goes into other things like how companies try to use non-compete clauses so that like if you get fired, you can't go into the same kind of job. And like they're like, well, we understand that if you're like the CEO, but like some pizza companies do that, as if somehow you magically learn something at Papa John's that Pizza Hut doesn't already know. You know, like there's nothing you learned at Papa John's that's going to help you at Pizza Hut that you wouldn't have already learned at Pizza Hut. But they do that. And that's actually a case working its way up to the Supreme Court right now that's arguing that, like, this is insane. Like, you can't do this to workers for normal jobs. Like, the CEOs, we get, because they actually do know proprietary stuff. There probably should be a gap so they don't just, like, say you're the CEO of Ford. You can't just jump over to GM and be like, hey, guys, conveniently, because you hired me, I know all this stuff Ford's going to be doing. Like, we should, do something about that. That's what it's meant to protect.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to protect like, oh, I learned how to stock shelves at Walmart. I don't want you to take that knowledge over to Target and damage our company. Like,
What do you mean?
by the way, I don't think Walmart actually does that. It's just an example.
I know.
But
you know how to bring stuff to the front of the shelf to make it look like it's full?
yeah. Now Aldi might want that technology, the store shelf part.
Why are they pretty bad about?
They don't have store shelves. They have just stuff's like just kind of there in boxes and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so like I said, I don't know if I'm going to finish that book because it's definitely taken a serious downturn, and like I can go listen to people on YouTube if I want to learn all about the glories of socialism, which I don't. So I mean, in the interest of intellectual honesty, I'm probably going to finish it.
Well, all I know is socialism hasn't worked because they haven't done it right.
Well, they'll get it right next time. But yeah, no, I mean, like, capitalism's got flaws. It definitely does. It's not perfect. There's definitely some things that should be changed. But all in all, I think if your choice is the system that just ignores reality about human wants and desires and tries to make people into what they're not and has killed hundreds of millions of people versus the one that accepts the fact that humans are greedy and want things and just builds that into the system, one of those two is going to work. And it's not the one that keeps killing people.
Yeah, well, that's about like the same argument I see on these podcasts where people are like, or it was usually women, feminists, were like, the world without men, they'd be fine. And I'm like, people are like, you realize like all infrastructure would come to a grinding halt, kind of things. It's like because of most of these infrastructure positions are held by men at the time.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, that's insane. Like, I'm sure there are men out there that put forth the "what about a world without women?" I'm sure those men are also very few, and most men are like,
no,
go back to eating Play-Doh, Joe. Like, we don't have time for you. Like,
yeah, the argument doesn't go the other way most of the time.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't even know why anyone entertains the thought, but even as a thought exercise, who's going to open your pickle jar? Like, first of all,
the hammer's for.
But seriously, like that's an absurdist thought process because the human race will be extinct in 80 years because biological coupling being what it is, like you kind of do actually need men, but also like who's going to fight your wars? Because I really love when I hear the world will be peaceful. I'm like, you clearly have not encountered people, much less women of differing opinions from other women. Like,
well, there's a one statistic out there that shows that in same-sex couples that the divorce rate in lesbian couples is like significantly higher.
I've seen that.
Than which would also tell me something that there's not going to be a lot of peace if there's nothing.
Well, no, there's not. I mean, a world without men wouldn't have peace. A world with only men wouldn't have peace either.
No.
Like, it's just a human thing. Like, there will be disagreements. They will escalate to conflict. And, well, it's going to go beyond a cat fight. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. Like,
well, I'm telling you, the right way to settle all conflicts, Robot Jocks had it right. Giant robot battles. All conflicts over everything should just be handled over giant robot battles. And people say, well, but that puts you on too much even terms. They're like, well, no, I think that your robot should be respective to your power. If you're the United States, you should have a giant robot. If you're
like Costa Rica, you've got like a battle armor.
What about if we just use rock, paper, scissors for everything?
No, that's putting too much up to chance. Giant robots. I mean, seriously, like, the only possible fatality would be the pilot. Well, except for the one arena where the spectators were also, which I don't understand. Like, why would you have the spectators that close?
Yeah.
To a giant robot battle.
Yeah. Well, G Gundam takes a similar approach. What they do is they have a tournament every 4 years to fight for who controls the Earth. And that one's got some interesting Gundam designs. Some that I think people call problematic these days, because they're all based on certain countries.
Yeah.
And like the one for Holland is like a giant windmill. But it's the one from Mexico and one of the ones from one of the African countries that are the sketchy ones. I think one of the African ones looks like a tribesman with like a zebra striped shield and a big spear, but it's the one from Mexico. The Tequila Gundam is what it's called. First of all, it has a giant sombrero on. I believe it's wearing like a big duster and has like a cactus club maybe. And I think has a pitchfork on the other end.
Gee, why don't they just give him a Rockus too?
Well, you know what the American Gundam looks like? It looks like a football player with like boxing gloves and 6-shooters.
Yeah.
The English Gundam looks like one of the palace guards with the giant hat. Japan, I think, is a samurai Gundam. Yeah, it goes into all the stereotypes.
Well, I don't know. The American one sounds about right.
I don't know if the Canadian one is a giant maple leaf or not.
It uses maple syrup as a weapon.
Probably.
No. The Canadian Gundam would just be dead. Got euthanized.
Wow.
Well, I wasn't gonna.
That's a little dark.
Well, I mean,
I didn't say it was inaccurate. I said it was dark.
I was saying that if you don't know, that's a topic to look up. Where I guess being euthanized in Canada is an available option.
Well, it's not just an option. Like
sometimes they recommend.
It's a recommendation that they're putting forth for things like, are you homeless? Would you rather not be? And it's like, sure. Well, we've got this other option over here. Like, I thought you meant like giving me a house. Like, well, you'll have a box. Maybe. You probably can't afford that. We'll probably cremate you. You'll probably have an urn. But probably not that either. It probably makes your ashes into something. But
be a bag in a cardboard box.
Well, yeah. I think we're thoroughly in the miscellaneous now.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a hell of a thing going on up there. Like, I read some horror stories about that.
Well, in miscellaneous, I guess I'm not out thrifting at the moment. Girlfriend's picking up, like I said, a copy of Dragon Quest 4, it looks like, which is the Japanese Famicom game. Which I don't have a whole lot of Japanese games. Like, I don't have any Famicom games. I do have a copy of Japanese Wave Race. And behind Owen there's some Japanese PlayStation game, a Namco game. I have no clue what that is.
Because you don't read Japanese?
I can. Ace Combat. Yes, I can read this Japanese because it's not in Japanese except for the subtitle. Which I do notice a lot of the Japanese games do that.
Well, that's like, if you've noticed, numerous theme songs for anime just randomly go into English at certain points.
That's fine. You can slide that down. Missing a game there. There you go.
Like, and that's not. I know that's not just for the English market. Like, I've looked up the songs elsewhere. Like, that's really how they sound.
Well, and I was watching this one guy go thrifting over in Japan to like all of these different, like, I don't know, say they're not like Goodwills. They were called something else. It was something that really sounded inappropriate. But they were all like, but the thing was in English. Like the signage was in English, and like then like Japanese. I don't know if it's just a cultural thing or if they do, why they do that, but I mean, even in the games, like Wave Race, they're like things are in Japanese, but then most of the titles in English.
Huh.
I don't know why. Like I said that. I mean, yeah, it says the Ultra 64, and then it says Wave Race 64. And I mean, I've got that in same thing with I've got Mario 2 in Japanese. Yeah, Mario 2 for the Game Boy.
Yeah.
In Japanese. Was that Super Mario Land? Right.
Yeah.
Super Mario Land. So, I have no idea, but to the point, you can still play the game 100%, and it's in Japanese, and because they have enough English in there to make it.
Well, it's like Chad, Chris, and I went to go watch Ghost in the Shell at the big IMAX here in Indianapolis, and the anime, to be clear, not the live action. I did also see that in the theater, but the anime, and like we weren't sure if it was going to be dubbed or subtitled. And the opening part is police transmission, which was all in English, and the rest of the movie is subtitled. And I was just like, what is going on here?
Well, we saw that in Godzilla Minus One, where they had the one section that was all in English, and
Yeah, the American report.
Yep.
Where we were like, wait a minute, why is the subtitle so the Japanese know what's being said here?
hey, the Ghost in the Shell is actually a good thing, because that's another one where maybe Scarlett Johansson wasn't the best pick for that role, unless I don't know much about the character.
Okay, so there's a justification in the movie. It's a weak justification, but it's there. Do you know anything at all about her character? And,
No.
Okay, she's the only part of her that's still flesh and blood is her brain. She's a total mechanical cyborg body, which could look like anything. Her character is Japanese. She was Japanese before she died and was put into the cyborg body. So, like, again, it's a weak justification because her character in the anime is clearly probably Japanese, as her machine body.
And see, and you know what? And people, I would probably argue the fact that they should have probably got somebody that was Japanese or of.
Yeah, I mean, they probably should have because most of the other characters are. But the way it's portrayed in the movie, a lot of the scientists are not. A lot of the scientists are clearly Caucasian. And, like, I don't remember what the explanation was. There was kind of an explanation. And if they're making the bodies.
Yeah, they're going to make what they're.
Yeah. Now, again, that's all justification, probably to justify the casting decision. I would have preferred a Japanese person play the role, Might have made the movie better. I don't think so, but I think the movie had enough other problems because they kind of just like hodgepodge the plot together from various episodes of the standalone complex show and the movie. And yeah, I think they literally were like, this was a cool scene in the anime. Let's put it in here. And then worked backwards from there several times. So yeah, I don't think it would have improved anything, but for optics reasons and because, I want to be intellectually honest and consistent here, yes, it probably should have been a Japanese version. Which, however, also brings up the other weird thing, though. The original anime movie doesn't take place in Japan. It's in Hong Kong.
That's China.
Yeah. Well, at the time, it was British, but yeah. Yes, but the indigenous people there would have been Chinese. So yeah, the original movie's in Hong Kong. And the sequel movie's in Hong Kong. But the series, the standalone complex series, it's in Japan.
So they go to a Chinese province that's technically owned by Britain.
Yeah, which is probably why the police radio is in English. And then the movie itself it's in Hong Kong. The original movie that everything springs forth from. Well, actually, I think there's a manga that's probably based on, but for Western audiences, the movie is the source. And then, like, you almost need a chart to understand what's connected to what the Ghost in the Shell at this point, though. Because the original movie has a sequel. And those two movies have nothing to do with the standalone complex series, which has 2 seasons and a movie, I think. But they seem to end where the movie begins, except they're in Japan. And now there's some other additions to everything that I haven't watched yet, so I don't know where the hell they fall in anything. And then there's the movie of Scarlett Johansson. So, yeah, kind of all over the place. So, I don't know. Yeah. The only other thing I have for miscellaneous was I saw an interesting video about Mexico is apparently going to try to build a railroad across their country to compete with the Panama Canal, essentially. Because the canal, one, is facing drought issues, but also, like, way more ships want to get through than can get through. So if they can build an efficient railroad, they'll pull to the port, unload, railroad across Mexico, and then back onto a ship. That'll be more efficient than going around the horn of the tip of South America there. And they also plan on building like a bunch of industrial stuff along the way so that they can export their own goods to those ports. And, like, I think the railroad itself is open now, but there's a whole big like plan they're trying to come up with there. And they've said they don't plan on trying to compete with the canal. It's a complementary system to try to ease global shipping problems.
We're going to build a giant canal through
Mexico.
Well, I mean, they could. You know, we built the Panama Canal. Like, that wasn't there already.
Yeah, but that'd be kind of a lot bigger deal to try to put a giant canal all the way through.
You just find a thin spot. Apparently, there's somewhere in Nicaragua that a Chinese billionaire was trying to basically do the same thing. I guess ran out of money. So
We need,
yeah, I mean, it's like I said, the canals run into problems because of the drought. Apparently, in global shipping, we just keep putting more and more things on ships to move them around. And I never thought about this, but I guess for most shipping, like the ships don't go that far away from land until they hit like, okay, now we have to cross the Pacific. And even then, sometimes apparently, like they go like up and around instead of across. I know that's why they have to do some airline flights because planes just can't go long enough. They got to be able to land and refuel at places. Uh, that's more of an issue with the Pacific than the Atlantic. But even there, they try to go through the Suez Canal instead of going around Africa because you knock a lot of time off. Of course, the moment you're having to deal with pirates and rebels and whatnot, so at least someone didn't wedge another ship in there.
I am the captain now.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So Owen's got a topic you want. I see you back there looking
Yeah.
at the game that he was looking at. There was Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Yeah.
uh,
Everyone tell us the significance of that.
this June 20th, we get famous YouTuber Jake Paul challenging Mike Tyson.
So age 27 to age 57. I see. I think it's showing their stats and everything. Like the thing is that I mean, obviously Jake Paul is considerably younger. I mean, 27 versus 57. But hell, I think even Mike Tyson now is still in probably fairly decent shape. I've seen him doing some of his trainings and stuff,
Yeah,
and
I was gonna say I know as of a few years ago he released a training video and like there was a lot of people like he looks like he's probably still got it. So
but you never know with those kinds of fights because I hear occasionally they still stage them and they do whatever. I mean, though I did see a meme that really cracked me up, and it was a picture of Glass Joe versus Mike Tyson because Glass Joe kind of looks a little bit like Jake Paul,
yeah,
just a little bit. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I would like to see Mike Tyson pull off another victory and not bite someone's ear, but
I was gonna say I don't think they staged that fight.
no. Well, no, I mean more like these YouTuber fights. A lot of them people
Oh,
are talking about
yeah.
that. They're just like it's about the money. It's not so much about who would actually win. And
Well, I mean, Jim, there's plenty of people who think that the Super Bowl was staged. Like,
I mean, isn't it a little funny that the Kansas City Chiefs with Taylor Swift?
well, I mean, yeah, that's
Taylor Swift, the Kansas City.
Well, I mean, that is a big part of the reason why because they're like, well, obviously this drove up viewership, it drove up attendance, it's bringing in the Swifties who are a large number of people who probably don't watch football, and so it is drawing attention to it. There's a political angle I'm not going to go into, uh, who she's expected to endorse and things like that, and like there's several like theories that all kind of feed into it. And they're like, "Oh, isn't it amazing that it went to overtime and all this and this happened?" And it's like, hell, I barely watch the game, so I don't know. Uh, and even like, I think it was even one of the games that they played to get there. People are like, that was sketchy, even beyond the whole, oh, this was rigged for this reason. And I want to say it was the game against the Ravens, but I don't remember for sure.
Well, it's the Ravens' fault they even made it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, and then you got the other people that are like, "Oh, you dumb sports ball fans! All these games are rigged. Don't you know that?" I'm just like, I don't think they are, but I mean,
Well, I seen a video that kind of talked about how the NBA's got some. And it was like these people like obviously traveling.
oh well, it's because officiating in the NBA is a joke. Like, I didn't watch the NBA, but I hear people talk about it constantly. Like, yeah, no, and
Which don't get me wrong. There's sometimes like I get like when someone's going up for a dunk that they let them throw in an extra step in there to get a dunk off because it looks spectacular. Uh, and helps drive up viewership. But
Right, and that's I even hear that about certain college games, both basketball and football, because I know that the Big Ten is not alone in they split revenue from things. So, like, say a big if I'm remembering how someone explained it to me one time, if I remember correctly, like say a Big Ten team gets to like a decent bowl game, the Big Ten gets money for that, which then gets split up amongst the other teams. So, one of the ways you make sure that happens is the other Big Ten teams that you know aren't going to make it, well, they're never going to beat that team that might make it. Like, there's going to be sketchy calls, and they're just not going to win because it doesn't do the Big Ten any good. Like, let's say it's IU and their football program, who's lucky to go 500 in a season. If they're at a point where they're clearly not going to a bowl game and they're going up against like Ohio State or something, like first of all they're probably going to lose anyway because Ohio State's always going to have a better team. But let's say it's kind of sketchy. Ohio State's on the bubble. Like if they beat Indiana, they're going to go, and well, Indiana's losing that game, like because it's Big Ten officials who work for the Big Ten who want one of their people to go to a bowl game. Like they're going to probably tell them like don't make it blatant, but it's going to happen. And all it's going to take is a couple sketchy calls at the right moment, and it's going to happen. But that's the theory anyway. I have no proof of that. I'm not making any official claims.
well, someone will just cut that part out of your
Yeah,
context.
yeah. I'll get a letter tomorrow, like from the NFL or the NBA or Ohio State or the Big Ten, and like, I'll see you in court. That's defamation. And I'm going to be like, all right, I'll see you in court. I'll get there. Like, Your Honor, what are the damages here exactly? What did I do to damage them? Like, what loss have they suffered from me and the 10 people who watch this?
Hey, we're up to
Oh,
347 subscribers. So,
I know. But
uh,
yeah, like we get a cease and desist letter is what we get probably, if they even bothered with that, which they probably won't because there's people all over the place spouting about them rigging these games.
well, but on top of that, it's like if they take your quote out of context or if they don't include the full entirety of the quote, that's like well, I should put this on streaming. So one of the things I've been watching on streaming has been Homes on Homes,
Yeah,
and Homes Makes It Right, which is where the Canadian builder would go in, see what other contractors did, fix their work. Well, multiple times he's made the quote, jack of all trade, a master of none, and that's not the full quote. The full quote actually, I gotta look that up, actually has a third part to it that actually makes the jack of all trades a better thing than the master of all. Uh, uh, okay, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So, he always uses it as, jack of all trades is going to be very good at stuff, which in a house building thing may be important because if you have somebody that's an electrician, you're not going to ask them to do your plumbing.
Right.
You're gonna
For general contracting, you probably want to be the jack of all trades. It's
yeah.
not. I've got a minor story here. At the Feast of the Hunter's Moon in Lafayette, we went. We saw how they used to make nails. Okay, and part of the problem was what you would do is say you've got 10 guys making them. Well, all 10 of you do this one step. Then you go on to the next step. Then you go on to the next step. Instead of having like two guys do this while two guys do this while two guys do this. For an assembly line, you need specialization. Everyone does their part. But for a complex project, you want guys that can do all kinds of stuff because you don't want to be like, well, we got to wait on the electrician. Like you want a guy that can do the electrician parts.
Yeah.
Or at least some of them while you're waiting on the electrician to like wire the main box or whatever. So you need the people that can like, hey, I need you to build this box. Well, I'm not a carpenter. Like, what the hell are you doing here then?
Yeah, that's the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
The production line.
Yeah, the other thing that
Henry Ford.
well, the other thing he did was the 5-day work week.
Yeah, actually, I saw this video, and I linked to it in another video. So if I don't link to it here, sorry. Talking about how Ford lost this court case that had to do with, as the CEO, he wanted to reinvest their profits into the company. And like, raise wages and things like that. And he was sued by board members like, no, we want a dividend. And he lost the case. And that's why people are like, oh, well, legally, the company's CEO has to watch out for only for the money making aspect, And it's like, well, no, that's not actually what the court ruling said. I'm not a lawyer. I'm repeating what I heard on YouTube, just to be clear. The full ruling is that he has to take that into account, but he also still has to do what's best for the company. So if what's best for the company is reinvesting the profits, that's what has to happen. Now, it might take a court case for him to settle that, but it's because of that court case that people are always like, oh, well, the board we have to take this cost-cutting measure because it'll make money for the shareholders. And it's like, no, legally you don't. That's not what the case said. But that's what people have taken it as, and it's one of the things that has just destroyed companies in America because all they care about is next quarter. They're not like, well, if we do this, we'll still be a company 2 years from now. Don't care. Stock price up. But it ties into like some other things, like CEOs being compensated with stock instead of money. Now all of a sudden, now they're on the same page as the other people who only care about the short term. Like that's one of those problems I mentioned earlier that we need to kind of iron out at some point. Yeah, but it's an interesting video. I'll try to link to it this time again. But,
This is
interestingly, sorry, one last thing. The people that sued him, I don't remember which company, but they owned another car company and used the dividends to help buff up their car company. Like the whole reason Henry Ford paid his workers so much, it wasn't because he was a nice guy. It was to deprive his opponents of a workforce. If he can pay them more, they'll work for him. That was the whole point. And to sell his cars as cheaply as humanly possible, because no one else could make them that cheap. It was completely to dominate the market. He's a ruthless businessman. But yeah, interesting stuff. Also, kind of worshipped like a god in the book Strange New World. Check it out sometime. I don't know if you've never read it. Takes the opposite view of 1984. Because it's also a dystopian future. Because old Aldous Huxley was like, 1984 doesn't work. Like it takes too much effort to oppress people like that. Eventually, you're going to slip, or you're going to have people that don't care. It just takes a lot of effort to oppress people. Instead, give them everything they could ever possibly want. They'll never revolt.
which is what people want right now.
Well, we're in some weird mix of the two. We keep oscillating. Like, there's everyone that wants to give us these things, but then there's the others who are idiots who are like, no, crack down. It's like, you're going to regret this. Like, you are going down the path of the revolution's going to happen. These other folks, they've got it right. Like, who's going to revolt if you've got all the pleasures you'd ever want? Because, like, the book mentions that there's like 100 news channels. Like, the truth's on one of them. Which one? And it's like the people have no reason to want for anything, but they're all slaves. Like, there's one guy that controls Europe, one guy controls North America. Like, those are the only people that have anything approaching freedom. Even they know that they're just cogs in the big machine, too. Yeah. It's a good book. Sure is.
All right. Anything to finish up the closing here?
Yeah, I guess. Got some stuff has been coming in from Kickstarter recently. So expect some reviews on that. Other things have been shipped and just haven't received yet. So on the crowdfunding front, got some stuff to show off here real soon.
All right. We've got a package at the house.
Yeah, that's one.
All right.
That's one from Canada.
Well, I think we're going to wrap up because we're going to film a couple other things after this to try to get some catching up to do.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure we've been filming for like 3.5 hours now.
Nice. This ought to get you some clips out of that.
Yeah, I'll have material for like 2 months after this one.
I do appreciate you kind of picking up on my slack where I'm not able to produce as much at the moment. I'm planning on getting back to reality.
Yeah. Well, just to realize that like My phone, the videos actually aren't that terrible as far as quality, and it's better at picking up sound than my work phone. It doesn't always do the stupid zoom thing that I can't stop. So it's like, what the hell? And I found a good spot to film. So
Well, I guess that's all that we have for this, and we'll see what else we can get filmed out here after this. But, anyways, this will conclude our meeting of the Geek Cabal, and we do appreciate you if you somehow made it in all the way to the end here. Um,
thanks.
we appreciate that. The two, I know, have at least one person that puts us on and works while we're talking. So appreciate you listening in. But definitely, if you're still listening in, make sure you do the likes, the comments, share, subscribes. Like I said, we're up to 347 right at the moment. We do appreciate all of that. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
See you folks later.
Yeah.
See ya.